I don't want to gaslight.
Tell us what you do in one sentence.
The biggest misconception in the industry is people who think that streaming services pay.
I wanted to ask you about Taylor Swift. What would an artist be generating in royalties from Spotify if they were at that level?
Spotify hasn't always been great about speaking openly and transparently about things.
There's this belief that Spotify is essentially charging artists for access to their own algorithm.
The second thing we heard a lot was that the Spotify algorithms are opaque. And so Discovery Mode was born out of
you release a song within your own territory and it will be pushed mainly to your own territory, stopping you from exporting.
That is definitely. We removed 75 million spammy tracks in the last year alone.
Oh, so kind of to combat in a way. What is Spotify actively doing to help with this influx of AI music? On the Record is usually a place where artists unpack the stories behind their music. But for this one-off special, I wanted to speak to someone helping shape the system around it. Sam Duboff is Spotify's global head of Spotify for artists, marketing and policy, and sits at the center of some of the biggest conversations facing music right now. He is front and center for the largest streaming service in the world and is involved in the biggest issues shaping the current phase of disruption in our industry, from royalties and discovery to AI, authenticity, and the future of the artist-fan relationship. His entire career has led him to this role, from helping video creators get paid on Twitter back in 2015, to trying to get writers and publishers paid on Medium before he joined Spotify 7 years ago. Throughout his career, Sam has focused on developing platforms and commercial opportunities that help creators monetize their work and build sustainable careers. Sam Duboff, welcome to On the Record.
Oh, what a nice intro. Thank you.
You're welcome. So your first stop in Australia was Melbourne, and I stalked you on Instagram, and I saw that you wasted no time in going to a local record store.
That is true.
Did you buy anything?
I didn't. I never let myself check a bag, and so my carry-on's already at the max. But I went to Northside
Nice.
in Fitzroy.
Cool.
Give it a shout out. I loved the curation was amazing. They had a whole local section. So I did Instagram it, but didn't buy anything. So I don't know if that's a bad look, but
It just means when you travel, you can't buy anything cool. That sucks.
I know. I need to leave some extra room in my suitcase for next time.
Next time.
Yeah.
I want to start by giving you a bit of a challenge.
Okay.
Tell us what you do in one sentence.
I work to help artists get the most out of Spotify in building their career.
Smart. Okay, you did it. I saw you struggled a little bit.
I did.
You do a lot.
It's hard to, especially working in the music industry, your job changes so much day to day that whenever I have to take a step back and describe what I actually do, if my mom asks me, what do I do every day? It's sometimes hard.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
You have famously said that the music industry is famously opaque, and I truly believe that. So I wanted to get something straight with you right out the bat.
Yeah.
How does Spotify's royalty payments actually work?
Great question. Spotify pays out pretty much the same as every other streaming service, which is subscribers, advertisers pay. If you have Spotify Premium, you pay a monthly fee. If you're on the free tier, you pay through advertising. Around 2/3 of that money goes into the royalty pool for artists and songwriters. And then we pay out rights holders. So artists and songwriters choose their label or distributor. And Spotify and other streaming services don't pay artists or songwriters directly. You pay the label or distributor that they chose. So you picture all this money coming in. Everyone's paying either their premium subscription fee. Advertisers are paying for ads. That adds up to over $11 billion a year, which is the size of the royalty pool annually on Spotify.
Nice. Is that what percentage is that of the recorded revenue globally per year? Because what are we at, over 30 billion?
Yeah, we're at a little over 30 billion recorded, and our 11 billion is recorded plus publishing.
Okay.
But, we're
That's huge.
We're around a quarter of recorded revenue, which is really exciting. That percentage is growing over time. So, we have 11 billion a year. We're paying it out to artists and songwriter rights holders. And then probably the biggest misconception in the industry is people who think that streaming services pay a fixed amount per stream.
I've heard that a lot. That Spotify pays 0.00 something per stream. That's not true.
That's right. There's no fixed per stream rate. No streaming service pays per stream, which kind of makes sense because if you're a subscriber, you aren't charged per stream, right? The whole value of Spotify and streaming is you can just enjoy as much music as you want, and you can listen to as many songs as you want. So because that's how subscribers pay to listen to as much music as they want, streaming services don't pay out per stream. They pay out based on what's called stream share. So the easiest way to understand stream share is to oversimplify it.
Please.
You know, if you got 1% of all the streams on Spotify last year, you'd get 1% of that $11 billion royalty pool.
Yep.
So it's proportional.
Got it.
You know, a fun stat we sometimes throw around is if you get 1% of streams from 1% of listeners. So if you're an artist, you reach just 1% of the listeners on Spotify and they stream you 1% of the time. That's enough to generate over $1 million a year from Spotify in royalties, which is really cool. So, you know, everything's based on the percentage of platform streams you get. When people talk about the per stream rate on Spotify or any service, what they're doing is after the fact, you look at the size of your royalty check and how many streams you had, and you divide them. And I kind of get why artists look at that stat because it's two numbers that you get access to. They're easy to understand. I know how much I was paid. I know how many streams I had, but that's just a calculation you do after the fact. It has nothing to do with how we're actually paying out. And so one of the really kind of challenging aspects of us communicating about royalties is to kind of get into this level of nuance because per stream rate's really easy to understand. But the reality is, you know, one of the great things about Spotify is we have really, really active music listeners. The average Spotify user streams 3 to 4 times more songs every month than users of other services, which is crazy, like a huge amount more.
Interesting.
And maybe it's a bit because big music fans choose Spotify. I hope that's true. Or we're really good at getting people to listen to a lot of music. But the average Spotify user is listening to way more songs every month. So when you think about that pool and how that works, you know, every service charges a similar amount. Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, Spotify. On Spotify, people are streaming way, 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 way more. And so the average amount per stream is lower, but the paycheck is higher, right? The reason that Spotify has been growing so fast over the last 20 years is because it's the most engaging service. People love using it. We inspire them to listen to a lot of music. That helps them retain, keep paying us every month. It tells, you know, gets them to tell their friends, you've got to try this service that I love. That's how we've grown from paying out $1 billion a year in 2014 to, you know, $11 billion a year now. And so you kind of have this kind of tension where people focus on per stream rate and they want that to be higher. But if you, you know, we really feel like people care about the size of the paycheck even more. So we're trying to optimize for the size of the paycheck, how much we pay out. The average indie artist makes the majority of their money on Spotify. We try to optimize that, not this metric that, you know, it's not invented. It's just not related to how payouts actually work.
You know what I find really interesting is that Spotify's am I right in thinking Spotify's the only streaming service that is fully transparent about what you pay out?
That's right.
Yet, I did not know that. I did not know that there was no fixed per stream rate. And also, and I would love to get your read on this, we have major artists like Snoop Dogg out in market saying, and I'm going to quote him, you know, it's a famous comment that he said, that he had 1 billion streams and his royalty check was less than 45,000. So can you unpack something like that? Because obviously there's a transparency understanding issue within market.
Yeah, I mean, I think for artists who are navigating a really complex career, it's a lot to ask for them to also understand the nuances of the royalty system. And I think more artists talking publicly about royalties, how much money they're earning, how it works, that's a good thing. You know, each song is different. Each artist has their own deal. It's like, you know, in that case, the sorts of factors that can, you know, get factored in. If there's 1 billion streams on Spotify, you're going to get paid out $3 to $5 million, you know, depending on where the streams come from, which, you know, is pretty good. That's like, you know, for one song, just from one service. So that's how much is going to get paid out for, you know, that song that Snoop Dogg released. it was, through a major label. So he knows the terms of those deals. He might have gotten a big advance that he's still recouping against. There's only some percentage of the royalties, that 3 to 5 million, that he's going to see through the deal he signed. There's 2 featured artists on the track on the recorded side. So, somehow, they're getting some points on the recorded side. On the publishing side, I think there's 13 songwriters on that track.
Classic hip hop. Lots of songwriters.
Yeah, which is that's part of how that creative process works, especially for hip hop as a genre. That's a totally reasonable choice to make. But all these choices, hopefully he's making those choices because it led to a really successful song. He and his team probably felt like those choices were the thing that set him up for success, to have a song that reaches 1 billion streams. I personally want Snoop Dogg to make all the money in the world he wants. That's the goal. Spotify's part, streaming services, it's pretty easy. We do the calculation. We pay it out to the rights holder that delivered the music to us. From there, artists, it's really important to stay educated about what deal am I signing up for? What percentage of royalties do I get? Do I have an advance I'm recouping? What's the split with my collaborators? Am I a writer myself on the song? How many writers am I working with? What's the split there? And I think part of, especially for signed artists, where it gets even more complex is when you think about that advance, where you get this big advance. It's often life-changing. It's often the thing that allows you to quit your side hustle and become an artist full-time. But that advance, a lot of artists think of as separate from their Spotify royalties. That's an advance on your royalties. The reason a label can pay you that much money up front is because they know Spotify is going to pay a ton of money for how successful your tracks are going to be.
Your deal is not with Spotify. Your deal is with your publisher and your label and your team around you that eat from your royalties.
And advances can be great because it gives you that cash up front. But I think sometimes artists forget that cash I got up front that's from Spotify. Spotify is paying the label that paid you that money up front, and you're going to recoup some percentage of all the royalties you're generating against it. So it's a useful example. Sometimes it's more useful when we talk about specific songs like that, because you can see how complicated it gets, where if I were an artist and I'm focused on the creative part of my job, I could see how I'd be focused on, I see I have 1 billion streams. Why aren't I seeing more money coming in? And then the realities of it are, a lot based on the deals you sign, the creative process you do, the deals you have with your collaborators, and that's stuff that I wish we had access to know, because then we could be even more transparent about how the money flows. From our part, when we release numbers every year about how much we pay out, which other streamers don't do, we can only share how much we're paying out. We don't know what happens from there.
I'll always take the lens of curiosity. It's just kind of where I naturally sit as a journalist. And I was asked at the time, this is years ago, to speak on it with one of our nighttime TV shows called The Project. And they were like, Snoop Dogg said this, what do you think? And I said, well, I don't know. I think he needs to talk to his publisher and his label, because I don't think the problem is with Spotify. I think that the question is for his label and publisher, and they did not get it. They tried to make fun of me, and I was like, no, I don't think you guys understand. But it was really interesting how I could not change these hosts on the project's mind about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think Spotify works like social media, where a creator gets paid by TikTok, paid by Instagram, paid by YouTube, that direct payment. And because Spotify is an app on your phone, just like social media apps, people think it's the same, but it's really different, as you know. Artists are signing and distributing to a label, either they're releasing themselves through a distributor they choose that has their own commercial terms, they're signing to a label, and streaming services all pay the label or distributor. There's the recorded side and the publishing side. It's really not at all like social media payments. So I think sometimes what gets lost is people have a mental model of, there's the artist and there's the platform, and the platform must be paying the artist directly, and it's not how music's set up at all.
I wanted to ask you about Taylor Swift, because I saw you did a report in 2020 showing her 2024 streams were 26 billion streams she generated for that year. I know that you cannot give me information on what Taylor Swift is earning through her Spotify royalties, but just say there is an artist at that level that's generating about 25 billion streams per year from Spotify. What would, and I know it depends on the deal now, but what would an artist be generating in royalties from Spotify if they were at that level?
because there's no fixed per stream rate, it really can depend on their deal, but also there's kind of, if your fan base is more in established markets, it might be worth more per stream. If it's more in emerging markets, it might be the same amount in local currency, but lower overall. So it's really hard to say. I'd say in general, there's, the top 80 artists on Spotify generate over $10 million a year.
Are they that 25 billion streams a year?
They can be, and up. It starts lower there to get to 10 million a year.
Okay.
I'm trying to do some mental math in
I'm
my head right now.
I'm
But
sorry.
I think if you get to somewhere around there, you're going to start to reach to 10 million and beyond.
So, finish your thought.
And so, that's, starting point, you think of just like the biggest 80 superstars, which is pretty long list. All of them are probably getting paid out through their rights holders more than 10 million a year. And then for the biggest artists, it can go up to 100 million a year just from Spotify alone. And we're just one of many streaming services.
Yeah.
So absolutely. For like that top tier, streaming payouts have gotten quite big. The good news that we can dig into is that for emerging markets, emerging artists, smaller artists, their royalties are growing even faster than the big superstars.
That's cool.
So, the big superstars deserve all the money they're making. Spotify is their biggest recorded paycheck. And for the top 80, you're looking at 10 million a year plus, all the way up to, even 100 million a year for some of the biggest artists. But we're seeing even faster growth further down the artist ecosystem. So growth on both sides is what we want to see.
Amazing. I want to help our listeners understand about how our top artists in Australia are doing in terms of royalty payments. And I was thinking about, we've got a top artist, Tones and I. She's over 18 million monthly streams. Incredible. I'm not going to ask about that level. She's out of the stratosphere. And then we've got an incredible artist, Tash Sultana, over 3 million monthly listens. But then we've got this tier, which is, I would say, a few of our top artists. They're around the 700,000 mark for monthly listens. Hooligan Hefs is an example of that. Amy Shark is an example of that. So let's round it up. So say an artist is generating 1 million monthly streams, so 12 million a year.
Yeah.
On average, what is Spotify paying out to royalty holders?
For 1 million monthly streams.
Yeah, so 12 million a year.
Yeah, it could be like, 3 to 5 or 6,000 per month times 12. It really it depends. If a lot of your listeners are in Australia, that will pay out even better because Australia is a good premium market. But that's what you might see monthly, and then times 12 annually, and hopefully even more if you look at all the live revenue they might get, and physical vinyl and CDs they might sell. So that'd be kind of a rule of thumb starting point.
That's cool. So thank you for that clarity around that. I wanted to get into some narratives around Spotify that have been making the rounds. The first one is around discovery mode. And my understanding of discovery mode is that it's opt-in for artists. And
absolutely.
If you do opt into that, then Spotify takes a 30% commission on royalties that you make.
Just in discovery mode context.
Within discovery mode, that's
exactly.
right. So the criticism of that is that there's this belief that Spotify is essentially charging artists for access to their own algorithm. So I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, discovery modes.
Sorry, not their own algorithm. Spotify's charging artists for access to the algorithm, I should say.
Discovery mode really came out of two big pieces of feedback we got from artists about our promotional tools and music marketing in general. The first is how difficult it is for promotional products that require upfront cash budgets. We have some other promotional products, Marquee and Showcase, where it's kind of a more traditional kind of display campaign where you pay cash upfront and we charge per click. A lot of artists use Meta products or Google products or TikTok products.
Marketing.
And one of the things that's really hard, especially for an artist early in their career where they don't have huge budgets, they want to reinvest all the money they have back into their creative process, to then kind of reach the minimums and the amount of cash needed to run promotional tools where you're paying that cash up front and then hoping the promo works. So that was kind of problem one we wanted to solve. The second thing we heard a lot was that the Spotify algorithms are opaque, right? They're historically had only just been based on listener signals, what are listeners engaging with, that tells our systems what to keep recommending. And artists really didn't have any ability to tell our algorithms, these are the songs I care about right now, and here's why.
True.
And so discovery mode was born out of like those two problems we were trying to solve. There's no upfront budget required. You tell us each month, here's the songs I really care about. Some people, some artists who decide to use it, decide based on, oh, here's what did well in discovery mode in the past. If it does well, I'll keep using it. If it didn't, I'll stop using it. Sometimes it's more strategic. It's, I'm about to go on tour, so I want more of my catalog in discovery mode because I want to sell tickets and I want to get in front of people right now. Or maybe, you're just released an album 3 months ago, and one of the songs is, that wasn't a single, is really bubbling up, and you want to give it that extra momentum. Or maybe a music video is about to come out.
Do you get more data sent to you if you use discovery mode on those songs than you would get if you don't use discovery mode?
There's some types of data you get that you wouldn't get without discovery mode.
Because I was thinking it's kind of a cheat code for what's working and what's not. Like switch it on, see whether it's working where it's bubbling. A lot of artists have been known to see their streams go nuts in certain territories and therefore curate their tours to those territories.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting marketing tool that is free.
Yeah, but what we hear a lot is it's kind of a way to test out your songs and see which resonate. There's definitely artists where, maybe they already know their focus single for a project when it comes out, but they're trying to figure out what the second or third one that they should put promo behind is. They might put a bunch of options in discovery mode. You get to test out which ones listeners are really loving, see that intent rate, see how many new listeners it's finding, see, if it's sustained. And then you're like, all right, that one's really clicking. Let's put some budget and energy behind it. Let's go perform it live. Let's film a video. That's definitely kind of one of the cool aspects of discovery mode, where not only are you getting your songs out there, hopefully finding all this new audience, but you're also getting these insights on which songs are really clicking with people.
Great. There's another narrative that I want some transparency on as well. There's this idea, and I'd love it to know if it's true or false, that there's a thing called geofencing within Spotify, where it's essentially stopping a song or an artist from exporting because the rumor is that you release a song within your own territory and it will be pushed mainly to your own territory, stopping you from exporting.
That is definitely not true.
Thank God.
No concept like that.
I heard this, and I heard it from a reliable person within the industry that I trust. And I went, oh gosh, that is so terrible. And I've been thinking that was true since this person told me that.
Well, I hear all sorts of theories about Spotify all the time.
I bet you do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think these things in good faith.
Okay.
And, I think, and honestly, to put some of it on us, I think historically Spotify hasn't always been great about speaking openly and transparently about things. And when you do that in that vacuum, people come up with lots of theories. So I don't blame people for having these theories, but that one's definitely not true. Our algorithms are looking for listener engagement. It's not factoring in, any sort of geofencing, geo-restriction. We want people to find their audience wherever in the world it is. A stat we released in Loud and Clear this year that's kind of like mind-blowing if you think of how the industry used to work pre-streaming, is that for the average artist, only 2 years into their career, they'll be making the majority of their royalties from outside their home country.
Oh, really?
So you think of like the music industry 20 years ago, you kind of were limited by, could you reach local radio DJs? Could you get a local label to sign you? And then maybe you could get CDs produced to sell locally in retail stores, maybe some adjacent countries.
If they weren't pirated and streamed on LimeWire.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God, we are bringing piracy in even harder. And now you kind of have this global marketplace for an artist where, this happened to Tones and I. I'm American. I'm visiting from New York. Australian artists are everywhere in America. And, I really don't think that would. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that would happen pre-streaming because now you put a song out and, without any incremental money needed to ship CDs, the long flight over. Instead, the next day, if you're finding audiences in America, anywhere else in the world, that's new fans. You can go tour in those places. And so, the majority of artists see the majority of their income come from outside their home country. And I know Australian artists are particularly good at exporting their music, which is really exciting to see. But
That
definitely geofencing would be the opposite of our goal. We want artists to find this global audience.
You need to tell our arts minister that. So our arts minister is Tony Burke, and he has famously said a few times that he believes that the algorithm is, what it is, I wrote it down. He said the algorithm takes listeners offshore. Yeah. So
well,
from a Spotify data perspective, that's not true.
Yeah. As an American, I'm not going to opine on Australian politics, but definitely that isn't how Spotify works. I mean, I know on my long plane ride over this weekend, I was looking at some of the data about how well Australian artists are doing, and you're seeing everything you kind of want to see, which is from a domestic perspective, really solid growth in royalties for Australian artists coming from Australian listeners. I know Spotify and the industry have been doing a bunch of kind of local marketing programs to get local listeners excited about Australian artists. And you're seeing really healthy export. I think for the typical Australian artist, like 85% of their royalties are coming from abroad. And so that's the combo you want to see, where you want to have a really vibrant local fan base, so you can tour locally, have your hometown fans. For almost every artist, their biggest market is their home market. And so, it's really important for, everyone in the industry here to stay focused on, keeping local talent popular locally. That's really important. But Australian music is exporting incredibly well. And I can say anecdotally as an American, like, I'm seeing Australian music everywhere. I just watched Off Campus, and there was like the Kid Laroi sync and the Chief Lip sync, and the numbers there have been crazy from both. And,
a little bit of AC/DC. They need the money, so that was good they were included.
They're really struggling.
They're really struggling. That is so fascinating, because there is this narrative that we need to get better at exporting artists, and we need help from the government in order to export artists, but your data says otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to like gaslight or sugarcoat what a hard time it is to be an artist right now. One of the things we talk about a lot at Spotify is how at the same time it's the best time in history to be an artist and the hardest time. And that's empirically true. It's, more artists are making money at all different levels of their career than ever before by light years. And way, way more people are trying to make it in music than ever before, because all the barriers to entry have been lowered. And so I think that combination of, you hear about more and more people making it, but more and more people aren't making it too, because so many people are trying. And I think that's particularly true right now in any creative industry in the age of the internet, where it's really hard to find that audience. And so I think when there's those two things happening at once, I see why a lot of people are searching for explanations or magic spells you could do that would help more of the people trying to make it in music to make it. But yeah, our focus is, how do we make as many artists succeed as possible? We're seeing really good growth in kind of artist royalties each and every year, outpacing industry growth. That's been our focus. And it's been really nice to see the growth of Australian artists, where they're earning more and more every year. It's one of the more successful export markets too. So seems like a really healthy industry. I've no doubt from talking to people locally that there's a lot of challenges to work through. I don't want to come in from a different country and act like I've diagnosed how the local music scene's doing. And so if people feel like there's this need for kind of more local music to resonate locally, I know, the Spotify team here has been doing a really awesome campaign called Turn Up Oz that
I went to one of the gigs the other day. It was amazing.
I
saw Hooligan Hefts. It was
on
incredible.
my 25-hour flight this weekend. I was listening to the playlist and discovering a lot of great Australian music. I know, like, since that launched a year ago, Australian streams of Australian artists are up by like 200 million streams a year.
Wow.
But yeah, we've all got to work together in every country to make sure that local fans continue to love local artists.
Yeah.
And just make sure we do smart solutions that are actually going to help artists.
Yeah. We haven't even touched that much on AI yet. Can you believe it?
Okay.
But before
this is the longest I've gone in a while not talking about AI.
Are you grateful, or you're like, no, I want to?
It feels nice, and I want to make sure we talk about what people want to talk about.
Oh, we so will.
Yeah.
But before we get into the AI section of the podcast, I wanted to ask you about the user-centric payment model that a lot of people are talking about.
Sure.
For anyone who's listening who doesn't understand it, and I'm probably going to butcher this and you can help me out, it's essentially the idea that if you pay for a subscription to a streaming service, there's they would like to see a model where a part of that or most of that subscription money goes to the artist that you actually stream. So would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So right now, every streaming service pays what's called pro rata, which is kind of what I was describing at the beginning, this stream share model, where if we take all the money that comes in every month, we look at all the streams, and then if you get 1% of the streams, you get 1% of the money. A user-centric model would mean, me personally, Sam pays $12 US a month. 2/3 of that's going to go to the royalty pool. And in a user-centric model, that money would just go to the artists I listen to in proportion to my listening. So it's a lot simpler, right? If I only stream 10 songs that month, they each would get 10% of the money that I'm paying into the royalty pool. And I think people really like the idea of a user-centric model because it's easier to understand. It feels fair. From Spotify's point of view, it actually doesn't make much of a difference. We pay out the same amount either way. So we've always said we're kind of open to it. If the industry came together and said, that's the direction they want to move, it'd probably be a lot of technical work for us and other services to do it. But, it doesn't actually matter to a streaming service because you're paying out 2/3 of the music revenue either way. I think what's interesting about user-centric is, it feels fair. It's easier to understand. It could help with certain types of artificial streaming prevention, but it actually doesn't make that big an impact in the actual size of the paycheck that artists are getting. So we contribute to a lot of third-party studies. So we give a bunch of data, so objective third parties can research the topic. The CNM in France, kind of a government entity research group, did a study where they had data from us and other streaming services, and they see what we kind of see, which is on average you see like 1% to 2% changes in royalty payouts. So not a huge amount, and it tends to reward the artists who are listened to by the most passive listeners. So if you think of the way user-centric works, like, my dad's going to make fun of me because I always use him as the example. My dad only listens to 5 or 10 songs a month. He's in his late 70s.
5 or 10 songs a month?
That's it. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say artists.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. He, on his smart speaker once a month, he remembers he can listen to music.
How are you his son, like Mr. Music Fan?
I know. I'm
crazy.
He loves his 5 to 10 songs. So in a user-centric model, my dad becomes the most valuable fan an artist could have because each stream he has would be like worth $1, right? You'd be like, oh my God, if I'm an artist, I'd want as many fans as possible who listen to as least music, the least amount of songs per month, because that's when each of their streams, is worth that much more. So what a user-centric model, really shifts to is it's, the sorts of artists that people who don't listen to a lot of music listen to. That's who benefits the most. And so, I often see it discussed online where people think user-centric means people with super fans get paid more. And it doesn't really mean that. It means, people who are listened to by pretty inactive listeners get paid more because the less you listen to, the more each of your streams is worth.
Got it.
But, from our point of view, there could be some good reasons to shift because it feels fair. It's easier to understand.
Would discovery be affected, like in terms of new artists coming out? Because I know that's a big part of what streaming services try and do. They help push newer artists. So that might take a hit. Yeah.
I mean, it depends how seriously people took the financial incentives. The average Spotify Premium subscriber listens to 200 artists a month on average. Nearly half of them are for the first time. That's one of the things Spotify's optimized for. Cool. We know people stick around longer if we're helping them discover new artists and new music. So we orient the product around that. In theory, in a user-centric model, your incentive would be that you wouldn't want your fans to listen to much other music besides you, because with the more they listen to, the more artists they discover, the less their individual contribution is going to be to your royalty payout. I think in practicality, I don't think artists and labels would try to do that. But in theory, that would be your financial incentive. You would want to say, if you listen to my music, don't listen to anyone else, because then I get your full paycheck.
Yeah.
Whereas with pro rata, you don't have that sort of incentive structure. All streams are helping contribute to, your healthy paycheck.
Interesting. All right. Are you ready for the AI stuff?
All right, let's do it.
Okay. So we've had a few wins lately. I saw that Tidal announced that they're not going to pay our royalties to AI music. We have an open letter here in Australia signed by a bunch of creative agencies and associations that essentially is asking the government to remember our copyright laws. Of course, Spotify, you've announced your AI policy. You've got Verified by Spotify, which is a really great integration. But what is Spotify actively doing to help with this influx of AI music that we're seeing on streaming platforms?
Yeah, it's, the number one most important thing we're focused on. We're hearing from artists, from fans, from industry partners. This is where they want us to focus. And hopefully people have noticed the last, 6 months, we've been launching a lot of stuff in the space. We're going to continue to. There's a lot we've been doing. The three things I would highlight are, first, our Verified by Spotify program. It can be really hard for any service, nearly impossible to look at millions and millions of tracks and be able to say with any certainty what the exact provenance is. That's already hard. It's going to get harder. What, we think the most important thing to do right now is to hold up the things that are authentic and real that we can verify. So Verified by Spotify, if you're an AI artist, if you're an AI generated persona, you're not eligible for verification. The, green check that you see on Spotify means one of our human reviewers went through and they can confirm you are who you say you are. There's a real human behind the music who is the same human you see represented in that profile. And we want Verified to start to be that indicator, that listeners can really trust what they're listening to. If the artist isn't verified, it doesn't mean they're AI at all. It just means, maybe they haven't reached the criteria to reach our reviewers yet, or they're just getting started and they're just getting momentum. But we really want, we're going to get as many artists in that program as we can. We want to say, this is authentic. You can trust who you're listening to here. The second big focus area we have is our AI credits program, which, we announced a few months ago. We've been working with labels and distributors to roll it out service by service. And we're already getting tens of thousands of AI credits every day that are displayed all across Spotify. And AI credits are designed for kind of good actors who use AI in their creative process. Artists, songwriters, producers who are choosing to responsibly use AI as one part of their creative process.
Like an Imogen Heap, for example. She does some really cool stuff.
Yeah, her AI Imogen project's awesome. She kind of sings duets with her own AI voice clone.
Grimes is another great example of that. Yeah,
and so there's lots of artists who are responsibly and transparently using AI, and there isn't a way right now on streaming services to share that. So the way our AI credits work are we let them tell the story of how they're using AI with fans. So maybe it's just for, synth. They can say they used AI to create a synth. Maybe it's a certain instrument element. I was talking to an artist last night who didn't have the budget to hire strings. And so, they had their keyboardist play on keyboard and they used AI to turn that into strings. And they hope as they grow their career, they're able to get bigger budgets to do things like that. But they would want to share that there isn't actually a strings player on it. Maybe for an electronic artist, you're have the top line is AI and you want to let listeners know. Maybe it's a post-production element. And so these tens of thousands of AI credits we're getting every day are at that level. It's helping artists who are using it as one part of their human-led creativity to share how they're doing it so they can build trust with their audience.
Here's one thing I really want to know, because I feel like the biggest issue that we all have with AI music is that it has the potential to take royalties away from human creatives right now. So if I create a song on Suno and I upload it to Spotify via a third-party distributor, am I eligible for earning from the Spotify royalty pool?
Yeah, Spotify doesn't police the creative tools people use. We want to leave it up to artists, songwriters, producers to decide.
But what if it's fully created by Suno?
But you're bringing me to the third thing we're doing, which is exactly in that space where we think there's a role for AI music are those first two categories I'm talking about. Authentic artists representing themselves accurately, trying to build a career in music, and artists who are responsibly and transparently using AI as one part of a human-led process. What we don't want there to be a home for on Spotify and don't think fans want is industrial production, AI generated content where there's not that human input. And when it comes to that, our third focus area is all about spam, low effort content, and slop, to use the colloquial term. So in October, we started rolling out our music spam filter, we call it. We have some of our most advanced teams working on it. They look at all the tracks on Spotify, all sorts of indicators. Are they mass uploading content? Are they delivering duplicates? Do they have a bunch of different artist profiles that we can figure out are connected? Are they doing SEO hacking? We tag all those tracks and remove them completely from Spotify programming. So it doesn't pollute our recommendations, and it's hard for that kind of content to find an audience. If it's egregious or repeated spam, we remove it from the service altogether. We removed like 75 million spammy tracks in the last year alone. So when we think about industrial production type content where it's low effort, it isn't human-led creation, I think listeners are noticing as well that you're seeing, less of that in programming. We're getting better and better at identifying that sort of content. What we really want to make sure we're enabling is artists and songwriters and producers still having the freedom to use AI creative tools as one part of their human-led process when they want to. I think one of the things that's really hard in the conversation in the industry right now is there is sometimes this kind of false binary that's being presented where you either kind of have categorically AI music or not at all AI music. AI detection, third-party AI detection tools, they can kind of tell if there's like AI involved. There's no AI detection tool that can say this is 100% AI versus this is 98% AI versus this is 90% AI. There's lots on, that spectrum. And I think there's this like hope or belief that we could, flip a switch and you'd be able to say, oh, this is for sure 100% AI. This is for sure not. Or say like, if it's 100% AI, how many edits do they have to make to it to not be considered 100% AI? If you export it to a DAW from Suno and then add one human, element, if you like clap your hands and add that as a stem, is that enough? Is it 3? Is it 5? Is it, what level of editing means we no longer should consider it 100% AI? And, when you set rules, would people then start to, think about how to make sure it's not 100% to fall below that threshold? And so what we've been trying to be, really thoughtful about is, making sure if it's low effort content, whether it's AI or not, that shouldn't have a role in our programming. That's not a new problem on Spotify. We've been getting low effort content in droves for quite a while. So we're investing a lot in removing that sort of slop and spam from programming. And then we want to hold up and elevate the stuff that's authentic and human and artist-led.
Yeah.
And so that's where Verified comes in. It's where Song DNA comes in. We've been enabling performance videos on Spotify. So now you can show yourself performing live, right? That's why we have concert tickets, really promoted on platform and merch. And we're trying to empower artists to show their whole human artistry because that's what fans want.
Yeah.
You hear a song on a playlist you love, you open your phone, you want to be able to see the song DNA and see who produced this and can I listen to other stuff that they've produced? I want to watch them perform it live. I want to find out that they're touring a few blocks from me in 3 weeks. That's what we're building the Spotify service around.
I'm so happy to hear that, and I'm so sorry to interrupt you because I
please.
know that
I could talk about this.
You actually have a hard out in about 2 minutes.
We can keep going a little bit.
But I'm so happy to hear that because it was really disheartening for every music fan and artist to see that there were a couple of songs that actually topped the viral Spotify 50 last year. I think it was a band called Breaking Rust. That was a shame. But okay, we're going to get into the rapid fire round because I know I've only got a little bit of time, but there's a lot we can cover with rapid fire.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Favorite initiative Spotify launched?
Ever?
Ever.
Oh, wow. I would probably have to say Loud and Clear.
Nice. Yeah, of course. Playlists or albums?
Albums.
Ooh. Biggest misconception people have about Spotify?
Oh man, where to begin? I mean, we've already talked about it, but the number one biggest one has to be people thinking we pay a fixed per stream rate.
Which you don't. Yep. Why did Spotify introduce the rule that a track needs 1,000 streams in 12 months to earn recording royalties?
I like that as a rapid fire question.
I know. I just really wanted to include it.
Yeah, it's a topic we're always happy to talk about.
Yeah.
I'd say for rapid fire answer, it's the realities of distributor fees and withdrawal minimums and trying to get ahead of the wave of mass uploads accelerated by AI.
Oh, so kind of to combat fraud in a way.
Yeah, that was a big part of it was, sorry, I'm not doing rapid fire now, but one of the reasons we did that 2 years ago is we knew there's going to be an increasing amount of music delivered. We wanted to make sure you couldn't do a scheme where you just deliver like thousands of tracks, try to get a few streams on all of it so that, maybe you can float beneath the radar, but you upload so many that it adds up. And it has been really effective at deterring that type of spam.
Amazing. Okay, Spotify has a feature called Reserved, which holds tickets for an artist's most dedicated fans to buy before the general sale. When is it coming to Australia?
Oh, great question. I wish I could break some news here. It just launched in the US. It's really awesome. I know it's coming to markets very soon. Wink, wink.
Soon.
Yeah.
Okay, TBC.
I'm sure we'll have some good news soon.
Okay. Finish this sentence. A great artist in 2026 is someone who
tells a consistent story.
What's one indie artist that you think is about to have a huge year?
I'd say an artist called named Mercer Henderson. She just headlined our Fresh Finds stage at a concert in the US. And she's amazing. I was blown away.
Okay, I need to check her out.
Yeah.
Last question. What's one prediction about the music industry that sounds crazy today, but you genuinely think will happen within the next 5 years?
All right, an industry prediction. I think in the age of AI, there's a lot of worry that, just what we're talking about, that AI music's the thing that's going to stand out. And, I really think we're going to see the opposite, where human artistry is more important than ever. And one of the most important differentiators for an artist will be your ability to sing live. I personally am really excited to see that.
That's cool. Thank you so much for doing the podcast. I can't imagine what a challenge it would be to be so front-facing during this really huge disrupting time in the music industry. Yeah. And I think that when I look at Spotify, I try and judge Spotify from its history. And I feel like it's really important for Spotify to be on the right side of history. And given history, it has been. If you think of why Spotify was launched, it was to tackle piracy. And we were on a real downward turn in terms of recorded revenue pre-streaming because of piracy. And now we're on this uptick. And I think people forget that sometimes.
I appreciate that. And a lot of the criticism of Spotify, we take to heart, and it's informed a lot of the stuff we're doing too. So I always, I'll try to read through the comments on this interview. I try to read through the comments as hard as they can be to read sometimes. But the truth is, we take it as a good sign that people really have high expectations for us. They care about what we're doing to lead the music industry. And I'm glad people care what we're doing at that level. But we're really trying to do our part and talk more openly about these things when we can.
Awesome. Thank you again.
Thanks.